On to the discussion at home on a few issues. Peter Dutton said if we need to amend the Constitution and have a referendum to deport dual citizens who are guilty of serious crimes, then we need to be mature enough to have that discussion. Within an hour of him saying that, or a couple of hours, Michaelia Cash issued a statement to my colleague Cam Redden saying, we have no plans to hold a referendum at this stage and would only look to that option as a last resort. Stephen Conroy, what do you make of this? Politically, is it just smart of Peter Dutton to get this debate out there? Because I think you'd have a lot of sympathy from many voters who'd say, yes, get rid of dual citizens if they do breach Australian law in an egregious way.
Yeah, look, I appreciate a bit of kite flying and let's get a debate going. But when you're put down by Michaelia Cash so quickly, you begin to wonder about what is going on inside the shadow cabinet and the leadership of the Liberal Party. You've had, Angus Taylor and Peter Dutton at odds over tax cuts going forward. You've had the question of whether or not the Liberal Party are going to dismantle the insurance companies, and you've had Dutton being leaked against by members of his own front bench, the talking points. Are they or aren't they going to do this? This is the third instance in a couple of weeks where there has been clear dissension among the key leadership and shadow cabinet and Peter Dutton, which is a really odd thing. Dutton's had a good couple of years. He's a bit rattled at the moment. The Western Australian election was a sign that he's not making the progress he would have hoped in Western Australia. But it is really weird, so close to an election being called, to have open dissension between the leader and his key leadership group and shadow cabinet. I'm frankly quite amazed at the way the last few weeks have unwound for Peter Dutton.
Michael Kroger, just on that point about the lack of, whether it's open dissension or however you want to describe it, just a lack of clarity. At this stage, you need clarity, you need discipline, you need consistency.
You do, mate, but minor nitpicking of the type Stephen's just described is of no interest to people.
Down in a written statement.
Is of no interest to people who can't pay for food in Cranbourne in Victoria. Okay, people who can't pay mortgages and hospital bills and school books for their kids. This minor nitpicking is of zero interest. So what happened is this: Peter Dutton said, yes, well, we don't really want to do it. It would be an absolute last resort. And that's exactly what the position is. Peter Dutton has started a conversation about this. Do we want to deport dual citizens? We can't at the minute because of the High Court ruling. And if legislation fails, then as a last resort, they might have to move to something. But Peter Dutton started the conversation. And good on him for doing so, by the way, because there's plenty of people who said to me over the last 6 months, how come all these criminals are still in the country and haven't been deported? You explain to them why, and they say, well, isn't it bizarre that the government can't make these decisions? And I said, well, separation of powers doctrine and the Constitution make it very clear, and the High Court's made it clear what can be punitive and what is administrative. People think, well, that's terrible. If the government can't kick people out who are lawbreakers and they can go to another country, why can't that happen? So Peter Dutton is on very strong ground on this issue, and as you say, the overwhelming majority of country would agree with him.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a fair point. It's hard to see too many going into bat for those individuals, particularly when judges can get rid of them. But anyway, we're a week out from the budget, Stephen Conroy. It's shaping up as a pivotal moment for Jim Chalmers, but for the government, and then for Mr. Dutton himself, because that budget reply is going to be, I think, one of the most important in recent memory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the budget, by definition, the government's going to set out its economic agenda going forward. There'll be more relief for ordinary Australians from some of the pressures in energy and other things like that. But this close to an election, Peter Dutton's, the bar for Peter Dutton is to put some meat on the bones. I mean, his own backbench, his own front bench have been leaking against him about the paucity of economic policy going forward for the opposition. This is his chance where he gets to put the stake in the ground. If he squibs it, he is going to really struggle going into the election, which will come pretty quickly after that. So he really has a high bar to get over this time. It's so close to an election. It's not like it's 6 months out and you've got 6 months to build your policies out there. This is do or die. This is a do or die moment for him.
Do or die, and in terms of not just the sort of the optics, the delivery, but the substance of the policy, because, Michael, we've discussed it, you know, first-term governments, they don't lose, unless extraordinary circumstances, but still an opposition needs to put forward something significant. It's not like a fourth-term government where people are just sick, you know, past the use-by date and you can win very small target. You still need to have substantive proposal, don't you? As you put it, Michael, and have told me many times, why your tomorrow is going to be better than today.
Absolutely correct. Peter Dutton's done one thing superbly since he's become leader, which is to define the Federal Liberal Party. That's why the party's so unified behind him. And that's why they're in a position to win this time for the first time in 90-odd years as a first-term opposition. On nuclear, on immigration, on Israel, on national security. These are really important, strong issues, anti-Semitism in particular. On the other hand, I don't think Albo's defined himself for a second-term agenda. There's no second-term agenda yet. And the reason they didn't want to deliver this budget next week is because the budget deficit is going to be $27 billion. There are going to be forward estimate budget deficits over the next 4 years of $150 billion. The real deficit is around $50 billion next year because we've got all these off-balance sheet items, so they don't count. They're on sort of capital account, to use an accounting term. So the real income and expenditure looks like it's only $27 billion, but the actual headline, the cash balance, is negative by $50 billion. And the truth of the matter is, despite Jim Chalmers, saying what a good economic manager is, he was hit in the backside by a rainbow with increased revenues, and net debt is going to increase from $540 billion to $740 billion in the next 4 years. Mainly because this bloke cannot control his expenditure. So this is a budget which is not going to do well for Labor. And I think it's probably another reason why I think Peter Dutton's favourite to win the election.
Michael Kroger, Stephen Conroy, gents, see you next week, Budget Day. Look forward to it.